So what's going on? The figurines, you collect those?
Yeah, so I'm just a big nerd, so I just got like a bunch of things that I like were kind of from my childhood that I like watched and, you know, grew up loving.
Yeah.
You know.
That's awesome.
Some Halo, Dragon Ball Z stuff, some Gundam, Warhammer, World of Warcraft. Are you a nerd? You into any of that stuff? Or just
I got some Power Ranger stuff on my house, Ninja Turtle stuff.
Nice.
Just like that. I got older
Let's
and I'm
go.
like, now I can buy it.
Dude, I swear, man, that's like the real like kid in me. When I started buying this, I was like, oh, because I remember when I was younger, it's like you couldn't just buy whatever I wanted, right? Buying this was so fun to just pick everything and be like, I want it. Because I just wanted something to spice up the studio a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we get into it though, guys, can you both introduce to the audience, you know, what you got, who you guys are, what your names are, and like what you guys have done, at least like the duration of like your time in the military and you know.
Have we started?
Yeah, we started. We started with you talking about that.
Awesome.
That's how I just start. Come on. Oh my God. No, it's easy. Super easy.
No, I'm Mike O'Dowd, and I'm the founder of Defense Strategies Group. We are a training company and security company. The training company, we teach everyone from, you know, soccer moms to Secret Service to, you know, military, tactical training, self-defense training, mental toughness kind of stuff. The things that we did in the military. Before that, I was a Navy SEAL for 9.5 years.
Holy shit.
Deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, and started this company a few years back with my dog here, Angel.
Yeah.
And we've been running it ever since.
Awesome. So you as well, yeah?
Yeah, it's I'm Angel Cortez. I'm a former Army Ranger. I deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. I specialized in explosives when I was in there, so I've blown up everything from homes to cars to weapon caches that we find of the enemy's weapons, to my favorite thing, which was bombs. That was my job over there, was to find the bombs that they would place for us, and I blew up a lot of those. And then next thing you know, I mean, almost a decade had passed by. It was time to get out. Went to school for a bit and to be a registered dietitian. And literally on my last semester of going to school for 4 years, Mike was like, "Hey man, I need another full-time guy if we're gonna make this happen." And I believed in Mike. He's been like a big brother to me. And I remember that night I was nervous. I'm telling my wife like, "Hey, I know being a registered dietitian starts off at 90 grand, but I'm gonna quit. And I'm gonna do this because I get more of a sense of purpose teaching and passing down my knowledge to, law enforcement who are still in the mix, military who are actually in there. My time is done. And then to civilians that want to be able to protect their loved ones and themselves. Yeah. So I get more of a sense of purpose doing that.
Right on. Well, I appreciate you guys coming. I want to say this is definitely different than my normal sort of podcast. Normally I have like some social media influencer or some athlete or some sort of figure. Yeah. But I wanted to say before we get into it, I have tons of like the utmost respect for what you guys have done. And thank you for doing that for me and pretty much everyone watching this who's not, from let's say a different country. Although I think it all kind of helps the same sort of, same sort of category of people overall. But I just want to say I have the utmost respect and I appreciate you guys for what you've done. And for putting your lives in sort of those positions that I know are very, very foreign for 99.9% of people. Yeah. And before we kind of get into it, I just wanted to say like that. I want you guys to both know personally that I really appreciate you showing up and speaking with me and sharing with me what we're going to get into right now. Can I cut you off real quick? Yeah.
I just want to say I believe it because you actually put your money where your mouth is. Like, a lot of people say thanks for your service out of like habit, like a social norm is like, oh, thanks for your service. But I met you at the SEAL Future Foundation event, like you and your company coming there and supporting. And so, anyone watching, like you actually do support veterans and veteran causes, things like that. Yeah. So,
I mean, I wouldn't have the luxury to live the life that I live if it wasn't for, our military straight up. I mean, I know the sort of power that the United States has is pretty much based in its military, which leads me to a bunch of other questions that we'll get into. And I want your guys' opinion on this stuff. But before we do that, I want to know how you can go, whoever wants to go first, but how did you find yourself at what point in your life were you like, I want to go to the military? And also, because you were a SEAL, you guys, the two-part for you is like, how do you find yourself going in that direction, which is, as far as I understand, extremely rigorous and like very specific? So
Yeah.
kind of how you were like, yeah, I'm going to do the military.
You know, for me, I don't know if I ever wanted to be specifically in the military as a kid, but I was always playing with G.I. Joes and running around the house with like Rambo face paint on, and which was why it was cool. We got to meet Sly Stallone the other day and like train with he and his daughters. And it was like, dude, that
To like show them how to.
we were doing something for their TV show.
Okay.
We're like putting him through a boot camp. It was really fun. But like meeting him, I was like, you may be the reason I was in the military. Like watching your movies,
Full circle.
man. Like full circle.
Yeah.
And really awesome guy. But I when I was 13, I saw a documentary on the Discovery Channel of Navy SEALs, and I remember saying to my mom, like, that's what I'm going to be when I grow up. I was 13. And then to realize that at, I think I was 23 when I went in, 24 when I made it, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Like, I always found myself being the protector of my friends and my family and my group. So then, you know, when 9/11 happened, I was a senior in high school, and I just felt so freaking vulnerable because I couldn't do anything about it. And then I remember going like, well, there is something I can do about it. I'm 18 now, and 18-year-olds can join the military. And I didn't join at 18. I went to college, but I don't regret that part. I just knew like that's who I am and that's the kind of person I am.
Yeah.
So like, if not me, then who? That's what brought me into it. It wasn't, I didn't want to be in the Navy. I didn't want to be on a ship. I didn't just blindly want to serve, which is totally fine. Like for me, I had a specific purpose, which I saw these frogmen as the most dangerous, badass dudes on the planet. I was like, that's what I want to be.
What is that process like?
Like,
Because everything you ever hear, when I hear about Navy SEALs, is like it's the most rigorous, the hardest thing to get into, the hardest thing to succeed at, to even be like accepted into pass the sort of testing.
yeah, it's really challenging. Like Angel and I were discussing this a few days ago. Is like our training is so hard and so different. Like our physical standards are probably the hardest in the world, but then also we get to eat food. Like I'm eating 3 square meals a day, and during Hell Week, they're constantly feeding us. Angel's training, he always talks about like going on these marches. I'm like, man, all you guys do is walk. That seems so easy. He's like, yeah, and then we didn't eat for like 3 days. We get like a cracker, and I'm like, that sounds awful. Like I don't know if I could do that. Like
Yeah.
I have to eat my food. I get low blood sugar. So, I mean, is it the hardest training for me? Yeah, it was nuts. Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
It was nuts. It was nuts. But what are they training you for? They're training you to do some of the craziest things on the planet and not be afraid, you know, or to limit your fear and just go forward with the mission. So the training has a full purpose. You know, it's not random. It's completely designed and curated for the end user, which is the guy going down range and killing bad guys.
Yeah. It's such a different lifestyle. Obviously, I chose something completely different. What is that actually like? Like to be in, you know, confrontations and to be looking down a barrel and to be knowing that there's probably barrels looking back at you.
Yeah.
What is that actually like? Because
Angel, you want to take that?
Yeah, you know, it's you want it, you know, and I too often I hear like civilians be like, "Oh man, it sucks that you had to go," or I'm sorry that you had to go. And I think more of us need to say like, I wanted to go. Like there's no reason to say sorry. Like I got what I wanted. You know, once you're there, is it, you know, you can only use your imagination as much as you can, but when you're there, it's the real deal. It is I've never been so high in my life. I've never felt so low in my life. And you know, firefight after firefight, if you're, you know, surviving, which we were, it's hard not to feel a certain way about yourself. Like you are a warrior, and you know, you're angry and you're skilled, and it's them versus me. So I'm worried about my teammates and I'm worried about myself. But were you scared? I mean, everyone has moments where they're scared, but you're not really scared during it because your training kicks in and you're doing your job. You know, maybe when you're home and you get to, you know, unpack everything, maybe that's when things start turning. But, I mean, it's hard to explain like how you feel when you're on mission. Everyone is under nods, so like night vision. No one's talking. You're going to his house. You're waiting for this guy to come out of his vehicle. Come out of his house to go into the vehicle. As soon as he gets in his vehicle, you come up and you arrest him, and you're like, bro, like this is like real life. Like this is like Call of Duty.
But all those thoughts happen after it's happened?
No,
Because like it must be so much like in the moment, you can't be having that. I mean, I don't know, but I'm imagining you're not like third person thinking, oh, I'm doing this right now. It's almost like reflex.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you're in
Oh,
it.
yeah. 100%. It's all reflex. I'm focused on my job because my teammates need me to do my job, and if I don't do my job, you know, yeah, I can get hurt, but even worse, one of my teammates can get hurt because I was slacking.
Yeah. There's a few moments where, like, let's say it's settled down and you stop and you look around and you go, this is a group of bad dudes. Like, I'm on the right side right now. And I think the feeling that the word that came to mind was like apex predator. You're not like, oh gosh, you know, what if you like, you get nervous and there is fear based in going on a mission, no doubt. But there's these moments where you're just like, dude, we are the scariest people on the planet right now. And there's this rush of like, nothing can stop us. And you know, the moment like something crazy cracks off, you get out of that mode and you're not like nostalgic anymore and you're not thinking about it. But there are these moments where you look down on night vision and you see a row of dudes walking with their guns out and you're like, each one of these guys is a savage and they're on my team. And we're hunting people right now. My entire Iraq deployment was night raids, just hunting targets. So every day we would get a target. They would say, this is your guy or your people tonight. Here's where they are. Here's how we're going to go get them. And then at night we'd go out and get them. And sometimes you'd get them, sometimes you wouldn't, but you were always out just hunting. And sometimes afterwards I'd put myself in that guy's shoes and be like, I bet this has no idea. He's going to sleep thinking like everything's cool. And then a group of dudes kick open a door or like sneak in the house and just like rip him out of bed.
How often does that end in bloodshed?
I think it's totally dependent.
Yeah.
Like I've heard crazy stories, you know, some of the fiercest gun battles. My Iraq deployment, there were no firefights. It was just every time we went into a house, they were asleep, the doors were open, or we'd kick them open and, you know, get the people very quickly. So it's like, okay, well, that's not going in and shooting people in the face.
Yeah. Because there's always the stories I always hear is like, this is the crazy.
Yeah, but it's still the craziest. It's just like in a different way, you know?
Yeah.
And then you'll have an Afghan deployment where there's shots going off and there's, you know, dead bodies or people getting blown up, and that's savage in its own way. It's not sneaky. It's not like cool. It's just raw and nasty. But it's all like life on the line, you know, you and your boys just like trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
And I think that's how like veterans and soldiers develop this like bond, this closeness, is because it's just you, man. Like you're representing America, but you are alone. Like you and your 4 dudes or you and your 10 dudes, like whatever that unit is.
Yeah.
It's just you against the world at that moment. And
It's interesting because before we got on camera, he came in here and told me, because he had to use the restroom because he says bladder is super like hard to hold.
Yeah.
Because you gave a kidney to someone who was part of your unit or part of your team.
Yeah.
To his wife.
Yep. Yeah. She, so one of my teammates, I could tell something was up, you know, with him. And, you know, you're close friends when something's bugging them. So I asked him, I was like, hey, you know, Benji, like what's going on? And he's like, oh, no, nothing. And I knew he was lying. So now we're passed by. And then I was like, bro, like what's going on? Like it's in your face, man. Like I can see it. And then he just laid it all out. You know, I knew his wife was kind of sick, but I didn't know what the situation was. And then he's like, you know, she's about stage 5 kidney failure. She needs a kidney. I try to give her a kidney. I'm not even O positive. And as soon as he said that, I like basically stopped hearing everything else he was saying, because I was like, I'm O positive. And it seemed like an eternity where I was making this decision, but in reality, it was probably like a split second. And I was like, hey, I'm O positive. I can give her one. And he kind of like brushed it off. And I was like, no, man, I'm serious.
Yeah.
So then I did the testing, for 8 months, going back and forth to UCLA Medical. And a year and a half ago, I gave her the kidney.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like that sort of like camaraderie and loyalty is so different.
Yeah.
In that space and from that space when people like who are really in it. And I just find it interesting because it's just such a different, even though you're a human just like me, you operate sort of at a different plane, like a different level, completely different level of like sense of loyalty to the people that have been there with you. And I feel like just, when we start talking about America and stuff in general, it just makes you feel like, not that like every civilian should be thinking like that or acting like that, but like we've kind of lost, it seems like, a little bit of like our sense of pride in America. I think like overall people are afraid to be like, I'm fucking American and I'm proud to, because of whatever the going on in the world and the misuse of this or misuse of that. And it's interesting because, I whenever I talk to people like you, obviously I'm like, wow, these people have put their lives literally on the line so that I could live the life that I live. And when we start talking about veterans, you mentioned that as well. And it's like, I look at that situation, like here in LA, I know there's tons of like homeless veterans, and even around that veteran memorial where like, I think there's, I don't know how many acres of land that like could be used for, people who have been in the military, who are now out of it, who are like trying to figure out their lives, or are homeless. And it just seems like such a misuse of humans that have put their lives on the line for this country that like are not being taken care of the way that they should.
Yeah.
And it trips me out because then I look at all this stuff and I'm like, I pay tons in taxes and that I hate taxes regardless, but like I'm just like, what's happening with the money? What's happening with all this is like billions and trillions of dollars. But the people who put their lives on the line for our country are like at some point seeming like an afterthought. And you clearly got out of it and you guys were like, hey, let's do this together. But not every single veteran is going to have that sort of like know-how or tenacity to start a business that's kind of revolving around what you've done. And there's a lot of people that I just think are just kind of like forgotten about. And it's kind of up.
Yeah. No, we started the company with like a 2-prong approach. It was like, first, we want to have a home for vets. So whether a vet just needs like a quick paycheck or just needs some community, like we bring guys out all the time to help us like teach, come out and help out like in any way they can. Because I know when I transitioned, it was just proper. Everything around my life was like falling down, and there was no community. There was no more brotherhood. Everyone I looked to was like these corporate greedy people. Not all of them. Some of them were like great people, but there were so many backstabbers. And in the teams, we filtered all those guys out, and everyone would take their shirt off their back to keep you warm. And I missed that so much. And I saw so many veterans struggling, myself included, but like I saw so many guys and like men of like the highest character, great human beings being like, calling me in the middle of the night saying, I'm thinking about killing myself. And I'm just like how many other of those guys are out there? If these are the ones I'm talking to.
Yeah.
And then we started posting videos and guys would message us like, same thing. I'm really struggling, Mike. Like, how do I find a community? So we try to like make this community, whether they work with us or not, just build this community. Because I really do feel like bridging the gap between like you and your experience, him and his experience. You don't know what he's done and he doesn't know what you've done, but to like bridge that gap. And now, even though like 1% of people serve, now you can understand him and he can understand you. And now we've bridged that gap. So we have this common experience and this common knowledge. And then he doesn't feel like an outsider and want to off himself when times get tough. There's this really good book called Tribe. Sebastian Younger writes it. And he just cites all these examples of people who go to war, like Kosovo. These full towns, the entire community went to war So when they all come back, are they all f***ed up? And the answer is like, no one f***ed up.
Yeah.
Nobody has PTSD. And you're like, well, how's that possible? They saw a horrific war.
Because the difference is much smaller of the group.
Yeah, they come home and they all experienced it. Yeah. And if we've all experienced it, like when we're all hanging out as veterans, we have no PTSD. We're just like boys, we're hanging out. And then you separate and you're with a family or you're at the grocery store and people are acting like weird or different. And you're like, oh, I'm different.
Yeah. That's such, damn. Because I'll never be able to speak or like really understand that. But what is that like because I'm assuming it's like you said, from the separation of the norm. It's like you feel like somewhat of an outsider because of what you've done or what you've experienced or what you've seen. And you can't really relate to someone because all people really want, and humans in general, they want, like one of the most basic things that humans want is to feel like they're part of something, like a community. Yeah. And if you're someone who's done something or been a part of things that are so outside of like the norm, then like you said, it's so interesting when you're together, it's like, oh, this is normal. But obviously you guys can't spend all your days together. So it's like, how do we create more things like you're doing, which is, it's beautiful, man. Cause I don't know. I kind of wish there was more from our actual military or government that did more to create that sort of camaraderie continued. It's just kind of like, you have to do it, which is, I guess it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, but I just think more stuff like that needs to happen. Cause I've heard so many stories. I've talked to tons of guys about it. It's like the same thing you said, where it's like, they don't feel normal. It's cause they're not in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very abnormal thing, right? To go to war is not normal. It shouldn't be normal. But you got to normalize the behavior. So you have to like reintegrate guys back into society. But I think the best way to do that is to reintegrate them as a community, not as like the token veteran. Like, oh, stand up, thank you, round of applause for the weirdo over here. That's not the way to do it.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful. The thing like you said, having them be a part of the sort of education for, the normal person, or maybe on set helping someone do something in regards to like firearms or something, because that's what they know. And then they feel integrated into it. Yeah. I guess it's just there's not that many opportunities. Yeah. So how do you create more opportunities in that space?
Well, I think hopefully the system changes, right? But until the system changes, we have to do it ourselves. And there's a lot of good companies and foundations out there. And, like SEAL Future Foundation is a great one where they network with each other and stuff like that. But maybe not everyone's a SEAL, So when I got out, I was in the outside, I was killing it because I was competing in Muay Thai when I was still a Ranger, right? Active duty Ranger, and still competing in Muay Thai on the side. And when I got out,
who was in a street fight, me or you?
Huh?
I'm kidding.
You guys are about the same weight class.
I'm kidding. When you said Muay Thai, I had to throw that question in there. I don't mean to interrupt, so I'm sorry.
And so when I came back to SoCal, I was like, man, I need to find a gym. I found a gym classic fight team, and I started training out of there. And I was going to school, getting A's and B's, and the outside, I was killing it. I'm getting A's and B's, in shape that I'm keeping up with pro fighters. I may not have their fight IQ, but I'm keeping up punch for punch, push up for push up, and all that. But it started creeping up on me, and I realized, like, man, I miss my brotherhood. I miss the community. What do I do? So then that's how I met Mike. I started my own community, and I was like, hey, let's all hang out. Let's do this. Let's do that. And it would start off as hosting the UFC fights at my house, and me saying, hey, I'll buy the food and the beer. Everybody just come. Veterans from my school, veterans from my gym. And we do that. Next thing you know, we have a small group. We have a community. They start networking, and then I would see them not only hang out, but work together on this or that, because not everybody wants to do shooting stuff when they get out, right? Maybe they want to work on computers, or they want to work in cars. And these gatherings became network opportunities, and that's how we help each other out. And there's a lot of companies doing it out there. And when civilians support what we do, it allows us to do more events. It allows them to be like, hey, man, maybe you won't find your new job here at this event, but maybe you'll find a friend.
Yeah. And that often leads to like some sort of opportunity somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Have you either both like answer this whichever way, whoever wants to go first, but have you had any experiences like outside where you felt like the PTSD, like outside in your life, outside of obviously the circles when it's a good time? Like, and what is that like? Is it just like the idea of like you're walking somewhere and you just think something bad's gonna happen?
Yeah, I think PTSD is something that everyone has, but because so many veterans have it, that it's predominantly associated with veterans. I have a service dog, right? I've trained her. She's a bad dog, and I walk around, and I'm a fit dude. I can crush most people in workouts, and people see the service dog, and I have good friends who have been like, "You don't need. That's not a service dog," and I'm like, "You don't know what I go through. I'm not missing a leg.
Yeah.
I'm not all up in the head, but every single night, I wake up 5 to 7 times in a night, and I clear my house.
Whoa.
I clear my house 5 to 7 times in a night, and I think somebody's breaking in my house. I'm not sleeping. I'm wide awake. It's not sleepwalking, sleep terror. You know, I've had people like, you know, my ex trying to like throw that as, you know, oh, he's dangerous. I'm wide awake. I spent a year, not a year, but like 7 months capturing people out of their beds at night. And I think that's probably the reason, but every single night I wake up 5 to 7 times, like, and I clear my house, armed or unarmed, doesn't matter. Like, I think somebody's breaking into my house.
Dude.
And so, yeah, when I lay in bed for 8 hours and I sleep for like 4 of those hours, and people are like, oh, you need a service dog? I'm like, yeah, because I need a dog to warn me if there's a real threat or not. So that's, to me, that's PTSD. But how it manifests in everyone is just different, man. It's different for everyone. How you see one car accident is different than how I see that same exact car accident.
Damn. That's gotta be, it's waking up that much is crazy. I do that just because I think for my, nothing to do with guns or clearing my house, but I'm just the competition and the training and eating crazy. I'll wake up in the middle of the night to try to eat something.
Oh shit.
But it's a completely different reason. It's not as cool. It's not as cool. I go to the fridge. And I look at the fridge like twice and I'm like, nothing I should eat right now.
It's like if I've had too many edibles, I wake up and I'm like, gotta go eat.
Yeah. That's nuts though, man. That's also really hard on your health, waking up that much.
Yeah, I've been dealing with it for years, and it's like, that's not a disability. That's just another hurdle you have to get over. But, you know, people handle PTSD in like way different ways. I'm curious, like with Angel, but I have friends who it goes everything from like outbursts to nightmares to like feeling uncomfortable in crowds. And that's pretty minimal. Like if you can be in a concert and you feel uncomfortable, I'd say that's a pretty good way to have PTSD. But, you know, we train women in self-defense.
Yeah.
And a lot of women who come to our classes have been raped, you know, molested, sexual assault, whatever that is. And they are dealing with their own trauma. And when we fake kidnap them or wrestle them to the ground and try to strangle them to like simulate an attacker, you see just like the streams of tears go down their face, and they're reliving whatever they went through. And then afterwards they come up to us and they're like, that changed my life. I feel better now. And
because you're also helping them learn how to go through that if they ever needed to, I'm assuming as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, man?
Yeah, man, I don't know what it is, but some about my sleep. You know, I was one of the psychiatrists I was seeing. She was like asking me all these questions. She's like, "Oh, you know, can you not be in crowds?" I was like, "No, I can be in crowds." Like, you know, at the time I was like, I just went to Omnia in Vegas. I was fine, you know. And they're like, "What about like fireworks?" I was like, "I'm the guy in my street shooting the mortars. You know, like I'm fine."
The bomb guy.
Yeah, you know, but some about my sleep, man. I tense up, my lower body just like flexes, and like my arms will flex and I'll twitch. And my wife Analia would like, I can sometimes feel her, or she'll tell me like, "Oh, I'll just rub your stomach and then until you like stop tensing up." And every now and then, man, I wake up crying. And it's never like, oh, this day or this or that. What it is it's not necessarily scenes, but it's the feeling of feeling helpless that I can't do anything for my dead friends. Even though for half of them, I wasn't next to them, but I was there with them. And, I can't help it, man. It's something about it's in my sleep. But you see me at school, you see me at the gym, you see me at work, you're like, this dude's fine. But something about when I close my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. How many people have you lost?
Oh man, over a dozen. I mean, you think you get out and it never ends, man, because you're out, but your boys are still in. Like, for example, the last American who got unless I'm mistaken, who got the Medal of Honor was Christopher Solis. He was a 175 Ranger. That dude was my section leader. So when I'm out here living my best life, he gets killed. I was his number 2. So, it's hard not to feel a certain way when you're like, bro, like you were supposed to be there. So I mean, I've lost easily close friends, like super close friends, over a dozen. And we're talking about they were 18 all the way to like 30. When Pinnick was 18, he had just turned 18. First deployment gets blown up. And I'm like, bro, we were having kind of silent at my house before deployment. And, now it's weird when I come home and what am I supposed to tell your wife?
Yeah. Man, I can't even. Like, I've been through some, but nothing in my adulthood where I felt like I could have had power over it. So I couldn't even relate to that. Obviously I lost my father when I was young, but I've accepted it now, and I couldn't have no power over it. But I couldn't imagine the feeling of being not old, but being of age to have had any power. But obviously you weren't there, in some of those situations, and you couldn't have changed it, I can't even imagine trying to rationalize that in my mind, especially probably after building the sort of bonds that you build with the people that are like also protecting you and making sure you get home safe. So it's just I just feel like this stuff needs to be talked about more, man, because it's such an important part of this country. And like, again, the reason why I'm able to have the liberty to do what I do, and I don't even know what to say. It's thank you is the best thing I could say, and talk to you guys here is the next best thing that I could probably do to help spread any sort of awareness. But that's tough.
And I appreciate having the platform, to do this and reach more people. And it takes people like us, like Mike and I, being open about it to let other people feel like, hey man, you know what? It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to do this and that. And if they're successful too, then I can be successful in my own way, whether it's through architect or engineering or whatever. Like I can still be successful after the military, right? And like I had just had a guy reach out to me. He was a Marine, got out, and then he went to go to Ukraine, and he lost his eye, and he came back, and he's from my hometown. He's like, "Oh, dude, I found you on Instagram, that you were from here. You want to grab some food?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude, come meet me at my boxing gym." And he shows up. He doesn't have his eye. He lost it over there in Ukraine. Obviously not under, being a soldier in the US. So that he's got bills he's got to cover on his end. And when I was talking to him, after lunch, he was like, dude, he's like, out of everybody, because this just literally just happened a year ago.
Yeah.
He's like, out of everybody I talked to, you're the one who gets it. Like, you're the only one who's told me it's okay to feel how you're feeling. He's like, because he lives kind of next to Disneyland. He's like, dude, when the fireworks go off, I feel a certain way. And I'm like, bro, that's normal. How can you not? I think it'd be weird if you didn't. If you didn't have anything. But hey, man, I told him it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to put some work. But you can have a successful, fulfilling, happy life. You don't have to lose yourself in pills. You don't have to lose yourself in the bottle, or you don't, like how many of our friends have done it, and other people out there. You don't have to blow your brains out.
Yeah. And obviously it means a lot more coming from people like you who've done it, who've been there, who've experienced it. You specifically, what have you done that you think that like in their act of service that you, I don't know, I guess you don't wish you could have undone it, but what is something that really stood out to you that that still affects you?
Like within my service?
Yeah. Like, is there any like experiences that you had that like you're like you look back on and you're just like, damn, I did that. I was a part of this. I was here.
Yeah, how aggressive I was, to be honest. I mean, because to kind of change the mood, Again, I wanted to go. I wanted to be tested. I was the first one in my family born here, right? My family came here to have a better life. We were born and raised off food stamps, and when the country was attacked, I was in 6th grade, and I remember being in 6th grade and thinking, I wish I could do something, because the country that's been helping my family and I with all these, with food stamps and all these other programs is in trouble. And I felt like it was my duty to now protect the country. So as soon as I was 17 and a half, I signed. I didn't think I was going to make the war, but I did. So when I went, I of course, I also wanted to be tested, and I didn't want to, freeze or anything. So when I went out there, I was super aggressive. I gained the respect of dudes who had been in the special operations community for like 15 years. When me being the newish, sergeant, when someone who's been in for 15 years is like, hey, on this mission, I want Cortez with me. You're the new guy and they want you right next to them. You clearly have something going on, right? And I'll get messages, from my younger guys to be like, damn, dude, I used to think you were like super hard on us and maybe I didn't like you so much, but I get it now. Like, I get it, dude. Like you just wanted us to come home, and you wouldn't walk around on the side, and you were for us. You seemed like you were a little bit too serious, but I get it now.
Yeah. Are there any things, like, are there any stories or any experience that you had that were just kind of like, I don't know, the thing, like, what keeps you up, like when you're up?
Oh man, stories I got for days, because when I was fighting, man, to be honest, I thought it was normal. I thought everything that I was doing was normal, and everybody was doing the exact same thing. Since I've gone out, dudes who I've deployed with have now written books, given TED Talks, been on Fox, talked about this, talked about that. And, when you're inside, you don't brag or talk about missions. You just come back. And if you move to another unit or so on, like, you don't say, hey, I've done this or that. So I just assumed everybody had done so much. My last deployment, we made national headlines 3 different times.
For what?
For the first one, one of them was we dealt with 2 suicide bombers in one day. Another one was they tried to overrun us. And some dudes got hurt. And then the third one, they said we were being too aggressive, and the president of Afghanistan at the time said all special operations from Wardak need to leave because they were making claims that we were killing civilians and there was missing people and this and this and this and that, and everybody we killed supposedly was innocent, right? And the civilian, so on. But so we lived in this valley, right? So we didn't really live in a big base. We took over a house and we lived in the valley, and the Taliban's flag is a white flag, and they hung this huge white flag in the middle of the valley, and that's basically a middle finger to us, right? Everyone in the valley sees, they know we're there, and they hang this huge flag in there. And we brainstormed, we're like, hey, should we drop a bomb on the flag? Should we drop artillery, or should we send our Afghan commandos to go get it? And after talking, they were like, you know what we're gonna do? In the middle of the night, we're gonna go replace that. So it was about 2 kilometers away, right? Straight shot. In it was about a small team, myself and the senior Charlie, which is like the explosive guy for that special forces team that I was attached to.
Yeah.
We were going to clear up to it, but before we got there, we were like, okay, anything that shines or makes a sound, like we got to take it off. We're going to be small. We're going to go inside, and we're going through all the homes. We're going in their neighborhood, all the way to the top where they put the flag, and we replaced it with one of our own flags. And then the night came back, and then we got woken up by RPGs, machine guns. And I remember one of my friends laughing as we're trying to take cover behind the wall. You're like, do you think they found the flag? And and that was the beginning of fighting season. So what a lot of people don't know is that fighting season, there's a fighting season in Afghanistan. It gets so cold that, guess what? They don't want to fight. We don't want to fight. So wintertime, for the most part, is like off season. Once spring hits and summer, it's on. So that happened in springtime. And from that moment on, I mean, I dealt with multiple suicide bombers.
What is that like? Is someone just walking up, like trying to be cool, and then
so for that particular day, again, we were living in this house that we took over in this village, right? But we would have to get supplies, and sometimes they would literally airdrop us parachutes full of ammo and full of food. But sometimes we would just drive to this local army base that had more supplies.
yeah,
So as we show up about 5 a.m, the Taliban do like to do a lot of complex attacks in the morning. And I remember we're ratchet strapping ammo, our mail, that our loved ones sent to us, and there's a huge explosion at the gate. But this small base had 2 entrances, and we usually go out of the main one. And I'm like, hey man, that's at the gate. And as I'm on top of the truck saying, yo, that's at the gate, I felt the biggest force I ever felt in my life. I got pushed off the vehicle. My face was in the dirt. I looked up, and 2 of my teammates were already running. I get up, and my vision is like not super great. And I don't know what just happened. I know I didn't die. So I go grab my gear. And what had happened was the first explosion that I saw was a dude walked up to the gate, acting all normal, blew himself up to allow a dump truck to go in. That was another suicide bomber. So a vehicle suicide bomb. And then he drove in and blew himself up. So I had a GoPro, and so I actually have this video and shared it online. I turned it on as we started running down to the hole. And that day, 91 Americans got hurt. And because it was that base was close to a bazaar for the Afghans, like a little market.
right.
A bunch of Afghans got killed too. So when we go down there, you can't even tell where the base begins and where it ends. And I didn't know this at the time. I'm walking over body parts. I'm walking over arms. I'm walking over feet, like everything.
Yeah.
And we're like, dude, what the f-? And there's wounded people everywhere.
Like civilians, locals as well.
Yeah, locals, Americans. And so I look around, and there's only 8 of us. So it's only 8 of us that went down to close the hole. And we're waiting for Taliban fighters to start coming in or whatever. We're trying to medevac everyone that we can. If I remember correctly, we took all the available airplanes, and they sent it to us. And by the time we got it secured, walked back up, I remember I was like, I'll take a shower. And as I'm taking off my boots, man, there's like pieces of flesh in my shoelaces. And I remember just looking down, looking at it, and just leaving it there. I just hopped in the shower, and I just stood there for like 10 minutes trying to process everything that I'd just seen. Because when I went down there, one of the first things I saw was this mom holding her child, and they were dying slowly. So if the explosion doesn't kill you, the force is killing you already, internally. Like your guts are mush, your brain is mush, you're dying slowly. And there were so many people moaning, very low moans and groans because they were dying slowly. All the arms and stuff, and the smell, the stench is it's in your nose. And you're just hearing bird after bird taking Americans, and you're like, dude, that's another guy, or how many people they can fit in those birds. And again, I'm like, dude, how am I still alive? Like we've been in so many firefights, we've had so many close calls. I don't know how I didn't get killed. Like my own guys would be like, dude, I saw dust kicked all over you. I would feel bullets. There's a sound you hear when the bullet goes over you. You're like, that's over us. And then something that's close, you're like, oh, that was close. I felt them where you feel the force coming from your side of your face, and it like stings. And you're like, I don't know how I didn't get shot in the face. I'm still alive. Again, now I'm back in the shower thinking all this, and that's just another day. That's just another day, and that's not even the worst day that happened there when I was in Afghanistan. Shortly after that, we, as special operations, we don't always roll with big teams. Sometimes it's small teams. Sometimes I roll out, those Polaris Razors?
Yeah, of course.
The two-seaters, we would mount machine guns on the side of them, and we would only take out 4. So that means you're only out there with 8 dudes, right? So one mission, we were out there. I think it was maybe like 12 guys. That's not a lot. And we start taking heavy contact. This is a complex ambush. Sometimes people online would say like, oh, I don't know how the Americans lost the Afghan war. You guys just got beat by a bunch of stupid farmers. It's like, were there farmers that were shooting at us at one point? Yes, but we would face like foreigners. Like imagine all the countries around Afghanistan, all the countries that would stand, like Pakistan, Turkestan, all that, whatever. They would send people, and we knew when we were fighting foreigners because they were
trained,
and then that particular time, we knew they were in the area, and we knew they wanted to come after us, and within less than 15 seconds, we had 3 of us down, and I'm hearing, hey, the Zulu's down, Charlie's hit, the Echo or the Fox, whatever it was, but I remember thinking like, dude. And I'm counting, okay, we were, 12, maybe 15 deep. That's 1, 2, 3. And you're like, dude, what the is going on? That's in 15 seconds to lose 3 guys and still have to fight your way out. And I was on the 50 cal machine gun, and I was just shooting, and I was low on ammo. So I had to start shooting my grenade launcher, and I would shoot it from inside the vehicle. I would tell my Afghan turret, be like, ready, have my grenade launcher, open the door, and I would shoot it. I would shoot my grenade launcher from inside the vehicle to provide some type of cover, because I know my guys outside have to medevac and patch up the dudes.
Yeah.
So as we're going back to our house that we have radios that intercept their communications. And our terp is saying, hey, they're laughing at us, they're talking and this and this. And then now he's saying, that how did you guys like that attack and stuff like that? And, days like those, obviously it's kind of hard to feel unstoppable, because you're like, dude, they just touched 3 of our dudes. That means they can maybe touch me too. Yeah. But what was the funny thing about that is because 2 days later we went on our mission, and I'm not sure if it was me or my friend Jack, we killed the winter commander that was there in that valley. They tried to do a complex ambush again. And obviously, if you're going to command and control an ambush on a road in the mountains of Afghanistan, you need a bird's eye view, right? And I remember as we're in this firefight, and none of us are hit so far, I see my friend Jack reloading, and he's shooting at this house that was, there's not a lot of 2-3 story houses in Afghanistan. This was a 3-story house, and that's where the winter commander was at. So I just started firing my 50 cal in there, and our terp was like, hey, you guys killed the winter commander, which sounds like it's a big deal, but I mean, that's just the dude who was in charge of the valley, that particular valley in dozens of valleys in Afghanistan. Which I felt great, but the other day they had just hit 3 of our guys. So I will say that no matter how many we killed, you never really felt complete because you're like, they killed so and so.
Yeah. It's such a it's kind of hard for me to wrap my mind around it, and I think probably most people listening. But I guess my question to that is like, at any point, do you feel bad about the whole thing, or you just because you knew you were doing it, and obviously they're doing it to you?
Yeah,
like
at that point, man. To be honest, nothing matters. Like not even the country that you're doing it for. Like nobody in the U.S. is gonna help you. Nobody. This is why one of the things that I liked about war is that, dude, I fought right next to dudes who had degrees, didn't have degrees, that were atheists, that were Christians, that were black, white, Asian. None of us gave a about that. We cared about what can you do for your team, how much do you love your team, how much can you put in, for the team. That's all we cared about. So did I feel bad? No, not at all. Mike,
man,
absolute same. There's nothing I did where I feel bad on.
And by the way, I'm not trying to say you guys should feel bad at all.
No.
I'm just super curious.
I think who I'm speaking to at the moment is some of the online who are going to be like, well, these guys are war criminals. And, to those people, I just say like, at least we stepped up, we did something and we put ourselves in the arena, and damn the politicians for us over and putting us in wars that we probably had no business to be in. But the soldiers, man, if you badmouth a soldier, you're a special breed, and I would love to meet you face to face. You know what I mean? Like these guys give their lives, and they give up their youth, and they give up their futures to do something that they believe is right, which is serve America. And of course, we elect turds all the time,
bro. Oh my God.
But don't take it out on the guys, because the guys are trying to stay alive. And any of these people online who like critique how you did something, how aggressive you were, they've never been there. And it's like their opinions aren't even, it's not even like, I don't care. It's meaningless air.
It's valid. It's invalid.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, dude, the climate that we're in right now is just so interesting. Like just America in general. And like, it seems like every time we get closer to some sort of election, it's like, oh, there's all this stuff going on. And it's weird because, on a really ground level, you guys, the people who have experienced it, the people who are experiencing it are, essentially just like, I don't know, like being used in, obviously they're willing and they're able and they're trained and like, that's what they're there for. But to like, in ways that like, I don't know, was it all necessary? Because I feel like we, as America, I feel like we get into a lot of stuff that like we don't really need to. And it's like, I don't know what I guess me, the government, like I have so much respect for the military and for the men and women who do that. The government and the way that they kind of like go about these certain things are just it's so interesting to me. And I guess from your perspective as like living it, being in it, being able to talk about it, what's your perspective of the way like the sort of US government moves in as far as, military action?
Let me jump on that real quick. Because I also, so in Iraq, I had this like amazing deployment where we were doing targeting and taking out pieces. And then in the Afghanistan mission, we had this mission that was just, it felt like you were buying time until we pulled out, quite frankly. It was just go meet people, survey the area, and like report on it. Like I could do that with a phone call, to be honest, and a flyover. But I'm going to give you 2 missions. One I was personally on, and one my sister platoon went on, just to give you an idea of like how the government leadership is of these situations.
Yeah.
First is the one I wasn't on, where my sister platoon protected a group of, this is in Afghanistan, protected a group of Chinese surveyors for mineral rights in Afghanistan. Okay, so let the online forum blow up for that for a second. Chinese surveyors coming to collect their proceeds because the Americans were too chicken to like rape and pillage, right? Obviously not rape, but like pillage the land. Like if you're going to go in and invade and reap the profits. Instead, we're like, oh, we don't do that. We're just here to stabilize, waste lives, waste money, and give it away to other governments. Number two,
God damn.
this one I was personally on, so I could speak to it. A warlord who's since been blown up by his own people was somebody who I would talk to on the regular. He was very like prominent, very wealthy. He was on the payroll of three governments, America and two other, like, we'll just call them like Western countries. This guy was making millions of dollars a year from these countries.
For what?
For giving support, so I don't breach any kind of like
Got it.
confidentiality.
Jesus Christ.
He was giving the government support, these government support. He had like a house in Switzerland. His kids went to private school, and this guy was just like a like very wealthy dirt farmer in my eyes. But he wielded an army of people. This dude, like,
Just to be clear, he wasn't on our side, though.
no,
in a
he
sense.
was an Afghani, and he was like by all means a murderer, but he murdered the guys we wanted to be murdered. Not just my team, like the entire country. And this guy, our leadership sucked his dick so hard that they wanted to keep him happy. So we went on a mission to give him ice cream. We drove out of the base with a 5-gallon jug, and the command master chief and the commanding officer of the Navy SEAL teams were like, round up the boys, let's go. And they got us armored up, ready to go, and we had to drive out, call like a mile or two off base to go deliver this guy ice cream and meet with him. And look, I sat in those meetings. I was an intel guy. There was no information being processed. It was just a shake your hand and rub your balls in the same time, give him ice cream, keep him happy. And I just thought, what if we died on this mission? Like, what if my boy got blown up on this? I would have to tell his family that we were serving ice cream to a warlord. And those are just like two examples that I can give the people to say, like, it's not the soldiers, man. We know how to go out. We know how to kill people. We know how to like affect change. It's the politics. Yeah. The politics are so bad, and there's so many people tying hands of the boots on the ground. It's like, let us loose, or don't have us there at all.
Yeah, it's like what like. So that's my question to you is like, do you think that stuff will ever change? Do you think it'll just it's almost like a game with people's lives, like that ice cream. Just like what are we doing that for?
Yeah.
I mean, there had to be there was obviously some benefit for them to be giving money and taking them ice cream for them to do it, but like, it just seems a little backwards.
Yeah, very, very much so. I think, my opinions on the wars are very, very jaded. I think once you've gone to war and you see behind the curtain, you're like, wait a minute, this isn't for the country. This is for like politicians and specific people's interests and business interests. And there is potentially a greater war going on that you're trying to like move chess pieces around, but we are very, very well-trained pawns.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to, man, is we are highly trained bad pawns when we're serving,
Yeah. I just like, I wonder if like will that stuff ever change? Will it be just more purposeful? And not that it wasn't purposeful, but like will we ever stop doing like that? We kind of, again, I don't know enough of the whole circumstances to say we don't need to be doing it or not, but do you think that like America will ever come back around to like just like straight purposeful, or are we just kind of like lost in the sauce of control and power and money? Because that's when you talk about the Chinese thing, it's like, well, what the is that about? It's like, why are American lives being used to like garner resources for the Chinese government?
That's way above.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just like, yeah.
I don't know. It's just frustrating when you're over there and you realize like how many people died for potentially not a lot. They died for their brothers, and they died for the ideal, their beliefs of like this country and how great it is. but what's actually behind it all? Maybe it's hot air. You know, maybe it's just a belief system, and that's sad to think about.
Yeah, that me up just hearing it.
Yeah,
It's just yeah, man.
And I mean, these are the type of conversations that veterans are having, you know, with themselves, you know, within their own groups and internally. And to them, you know, I say, if you feel and you question your service, I mean, it's only, I think, natural to do it, and I think it's a healthy thing to do it, you know, so you can work through it instead of, you know, not knowing what to feel.
Yeah.
But I always tell my guys, like, look, man, we did our job. We did our job, and whatever. It's not our fault that the politicians pulled out, and it's not out of Afghanistan like this, or they did that. Like, we don't make those calls. Don't feel bad. You know, and if I say, if veterans do feel bad, no matter what, you know, they don't see it like the way I see it, like, hey, we did our job, and they feel cheated from this opportunity to do good, I would say look into maybe being a living donor. And I say that because right before I was going to donate a kidney, one of my friends who I went to Iraq with, he called me. He's like, hey, I heard you were going to donate a kidney. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, hey, I donated a kidney too. And I was like, dude, what the like, when? And he's like, 3 years ago. And I was like, oh, man, like, I didn't know that. And he's like, you know, he asked some questions, this and this, this and that. And he said something that at the time I didn't like. He said, you know, you're doing something great, and I'm more proud of my kidney donation than my service. And I'm very proud of my service. So for him to say that, I was like, I didn't like that. I felt like that was wrong. But after donating the kidney, I see what he means, you know, because I feel, you know, proud, if not more proud, of donating the kidney than my service. Because with the kidney donation, I knew, hey, there's no doubt I helped, right?
Yeah.
People join the military. They want to help. They want to be tested. And maybe they got cheated off that. They feel like they got cheated off of that because of the politicians. Donate a kidney. And I met someone recently who was a veteran and did that too. So he told me what I just told you, but for his own self. And I was like, dude, that's how I felt. Like, when I donated a kidney, I couldn't believe that I was actually maybe even more proud of my service. But that veteran in particular, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name. He's one of those that said, to be honest, man, I got out and I felt like I was used. I felt like it was for nothing. Why did my friends die? And I donated a kidney, and it brought me more center. I was kind of a loose cannon, and he also does jiu-jitsu. So he said the kidney donation and entering the martial arts world helped him out so much. So if you're feeling like that, look into doing something like that.
You just need a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
What it seems.
yeah.
Because that's got to be the challenging thing after, like, that was your whole life, or your whole sort of purpose is, you know, acting in this sort of unit for your government. And then obviously the connection of, like, well, what, was this really truly purposeful? And then that questioning. And then obviously in a situation where you're donating something like that, where you know for sure this is essentially saving a life.
Yeah.
And well, I'm actually really curious, what if you donate a kidney, what happens to you?
Man,
Does that affect your lifespan?
well, it doesn't.
Oh.
Well, if I do everything I'm supposed to do. So when they ask me, they're like, "Hey, are you sure you want to donate? Have you looked up the you know, what's gonna happen?" And I was like, "Oh yeah. I didn't look up. I just wanted to help."
Dude, we were trying to, like, he just jumps into things. He's like, I'm going to give it up. And I had to, like, I wasn't trying to talk him out of it, but I was trying to show him, like, dude, this is a real thing. Like, you have to be 100%. And he's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, you're not good. Like, I felt like I was talking him out of it. Even though I didn't want to. I'm like, dude, this is bigger than you think. And, you know, he's a knucklehead. He's just like, no, I'm doing it. But then I just watching his transformation once the kidney was out of his body, like, dude, it was hard to watch, because for the longest time, like, he's always been a beast and a monster, and you just see him then, like, he can't even bend over and pick up like this. He's just like, his, like, wife's you know, walking him around, like, showering him and stuff, and you're like, dude, and took him months and months and months to get back to like even normal. So I think for me, just as a friend, I was like, dude, it's no joke.
Yeah.
It was hands down probably. I've been to Ranger School, and Ranger School is tough. You know, I did the RASP, which is a selection to be in the 75th Ranger Regiment. I went to war, and hands down, the kidney donation recovery. And I'm not saying this to scare people off. This is just the reality of it. Was one of the most mentally challenging things I've done, because I was so scared about the surgery, like the donation part.
Yeah.
It was the easiest part because I was asleep. So this entire time I was so scared and worried about, the surgery. And I'm like, but I was asleep. So that was easy. Then you wake up, and I felt the worst pain I ever felt in my entire life. I was crying, asking for pain meds. But before I asked for pain meds, the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "How's Larissa?" Which that's her name, Larissa. And then, I was in the hospital for 2 days, and they take me home, and they're like, "Hey, you can't lift anything more than 10 pounds." And then you realize, okay, I can't pick up or hug any of my kids. I can't, almost everything that you actually need to do day to day is more than 10 pounds. I can't drive. I can't do anything. Dude, I couldn't even shower my own self. My wife had to come in, shower everything. Everything was so bloated. I could put my whole go to my second knuckle of how much everything was inflamed around there.
Yeah.
And then even then, like, the doctor was like, "Hey, you gotta walk," and I would walk 2 houses to the left and back, and I was exhausted. I was like exhausted, more than I've ever been in my entire life. And then, the pain meds were kind of helping, but I didn't want to take more than I had to, so I couldn't sleep because of the pain. I couldn't move. Laughing or shit, even trying to fart hurt so much. Yeah. I'm like, and you're like, how long of this has already been? And you're like, oh, it's only been a week. You got 11 more to go.
Yeah.
And when they give you the green light, it's not even like, okay, I'm running. My strength and conditioning coach was, Coach Lou. He's very smart, and he knew exactly what to do, and he's the one who put the brakes on what I wanted to do. Right, I wanted to go, and he's like, no, we got to build you up slowly. He's like, here's these 10, 15 pound weights, and I'm thinking I'm gonna move up real soon. That 10, 15 pounds killed me, and I try to go for our first run, and you're like, dude, I don't feel right. And the surgeon told me, hey, it's going to take you about a year and a half for you to feel like yourself. And I remember thinking, like, bro, that's weird. I'm me. I'm going to feel like me. And I knew what it means, because you're taking the kidney out and your body's trying to figure out what's going on. And then you got the green light to work out, and you're trying to work out like how you used to.
Yeah.
Like, come on, it's trying to function, period.
It's finding balance all over again.
100%.
Yeah.
And actually, I did almost a year and a half. I'm at 18 months now, right? So about the year and a half mark is when I actually started feeling like myself. And in the beginning stages, man, the pain, the not being able to put on my own clothes, but being vulnerable, because I didn't like that. I didn't like that. Be like, dude, if somebody robs my house right now, I have to lay in this bed and just take it. Like, I can't do anything. Like,
He could not do that. He's based on his story. He's like,
a 7-year-old can kick my ass right now,
Yeah.
But nonetheless, like, I know that's not a good pitch. Still, like, yeah,
that's not a good pitch. But it's purpose. It's purpose.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Is like, it's not a normal person that goes, hey, I'm gonna go like change my entire life and go and fight for my country. Like, not everyone is doing that. That's not a normal. Like, they used to have drafts where it's like, you have to come do this. Like, you guys willingly were like, I'm gonna do this, and that's not like an average human thing to do. Like, most people want to be safe, and they want to be comfortable, and they want to be good, and it's like their whole life revolves around that. So obviously you guys are outliers in the sort of, the human world community, right? And again, I kind of want to figure out now, obviously you guys are doing the outreach, you guys are working with veterans. What gives you guys the most purpose now? Obviously, giving the kidney up meant a lot to you, but how else do you guys continue to find purpose?
What we do with our work is everything. Like, Angel kind of alluded to this, but when I got off of the team and moved into an instructor role. I was teaching at Buds, which is like the schoolhouse for Navy SEALs. And that's where I really found purpose. Not that I had immense purpose in the mission, but I started to feel a little bit like illusioned. I felt lied to about what we were doing. I know bad guys need to be killed, but it didn't feel like that's why we were doing some of those things. It felt like we were there to just like sit and hold space. When I started instructing, that's when I found great purpose, man. It was like taking a group of guys who are just ready to go, like alpha, like apex predators, and they want to learn from you, and giving them these skills so that they can go downrange and use them. They can go around the world like this force multiplier. I felt like I was like raising this army of guys who were going to go do good for the country, whether or not the politicians send them to do that good, but they are ready to do good.
Yeah.
And then when I got out, I lost that purpose for a while. I was working in the corporate space, and it was like, this isn't who I am. And it's not to say that people shouldn't do their own jobs, but like you got to do service to something bigger than you, whether that's have a nonprofit or volunteer your time or, you know, just help others. Like you can't, if you're just in it for yourself, man, kind of like go for yourself. Like you're adding nothing of value to your community, right?
Yeah.
You have to give back in some way. So how could I give back? Well, I didn't have a dime to my name, and I was like, you know what? Let's start teaching people how to defend themselves. So we've got these skills, and we could train police, we could train military, and we do that. And I feel so rewarded for the opportunity of that. But I get a ton of satisfaction out of training like everyday people, like guys like you, like, hey, I want to come learn how to shoot. You leave, like some guy brings his wife out and we teach her to be confident in defending herself. Like that's so rewarding. When we have these women come to the self-defense classes and they're bawling because they're experiencing this and they're overcoming their trauma, to us, that's why we do this. And man, that feels so much better than going down range. It's like the excitement's not the same. I would love to go down range, but the purpose is greater. It's like we are helping, not just hurting. And that's what keeps us going. And that's why we keep driving this. It's like, we just want to keep training people and making them feel confident and have these skills that everyone should have. Everyone should have the capability to defend themselves.
Absolutely.
Right? The less sheep and the more, you know, if you want to say sheepdog or wolves, I don't care. But like the less sheep out there, victims, the better.
Yeah. It's weird. We've gotten to a place where like the victimhood is like the fallback. Like most people just defer to that instead of like try to create a circumstance where they could feel more empowered.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like that's something that, you know, I hear it all the time. I mean, just internet stuff. It's like, you know, the conversations about being alpha or being a and all this stuff. So what's your perspective? Like, do you watch a lot of stuff on the internet? Do you see like social media people? Like,
Yeah.
I think we're on the internet a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
So-
don't like to admit that.
It's fair. It's fair. So what's your opinion on like the sort of manosphere of like people talking about alpha stuff and, you know, being alpha, what it means to be alpha? I want to ask you, because obviously you guys, I would say the definition of it, you know, sacrificing yourselves. What's your perspective on like what it is to be truly alpha?
Are you asking me because you think I'm the alpha of this?
I'm asking both of you. No, both of you. Yeah. I love how the competition's hilarious. It's just,
Dude.
that's good though.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about this exact question. I don't know why I was thinking about this on the drive over, but it was the topic I was thinking of.
Sick. That's, dude, I nailed that then. Let's go.
100%, man. This is what I love is like people, there's this misconception of what an alpha is. People think the baddest dude in the room is the loudest guy, the biggest guy, right? And sometimes it is.
Especially when he's 260. It's like,
Yeah. Right? Like the big bodybuilder types, right? Not sure.
yeah.
But this isn't a dig at big guys. It's not a dig at small guys. This is what I saw putting guys through training. The baddest guy in the room is usually the quietest. There's no affiliation with size. There's no correlation to like how he acts, how he talks in terms of like chest beating. There's none of that. There's none of this like talking about how cool he is, talking about how badass he is. I tend to be the mouthpiece for the company, so I tend to talk a lot. And I think sometimes people go like, "Oh, he's badass, he's badass." And while I try to be badass, I shoot, I fight, I do all these things. Like, I surround myself with savages, and they don't talk about it, right? Like they don't go around beating their chest. They put their head down every day and they just grind. One of the most savage guys we know, it was just his birthday the other day. The guy is one of the best shooters, black belt in jiu-jitsu, crazy fighter, trains with knives all day long, and the guy's a librarian. Right? and he's watching this right now, hopefully, and he's laughing, and he probably feels like humiliated because other people will know who I'm talking about.
You got to bring
right
that
now.
book back on time.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
better bring that book
be
back. But that was when I got out of the teams, I thought, oh, Navy SEAL bad, Ranger bad. None of that is necessarily bad. I know some guys who are in those groups that aren't that bad. They're tough. But the alpha is the guy who quietly trains, the guy who's the protector of his family, the guy who respects other people around him, the warrior mindset, right? The real warrior mindset, having humility, having like high character, integrity, having those like human characteristics first, being good people. And then on top of that, they have these amazing skills. And that is an alpha. And we spent a lot of time in fight gyms, training, and you'd be surprised how many truly badass guys are out walking these streets who wear a suit and tie every day, like Superman. They don't have beards. They don't have freaking guns and holsters and kits and all this stuff. They I'll call myself out. They just drink like vanilla lattes and like go on about their day. But they understand the savagery. There's a time and place to be violent, but that's such a small window of your life.
Yeah.
You have to be ready for that. You have to be ready to up and take down bad guys. Otherwise, like, are you even a man? Like, if you're not capable of doing that, that's a defining characteristic of a man, is being able to like stand up and defend. But if you can do that and be highly educated, like a go-getter, a businessman, and all these other things, a great father, a great husband, all these things, if you can do all of that and be bad, violent, I think that's the alpha.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your perspective on sort of internet personalities that speak or like talk about being alpha?
They suck. They all suck.
Go ahead.
And because I'll see a lot of them and be like, dude, you. Like, okay, I don't really know who you are, and I'll look at the page or look at it, and I'm like, oh, you're just a good talker. You just have a very nice way of putting words together, and most of them are kind of big, right? But I'm like, you probably don't know how to shoot, and you probably don't know how to fight, and then some of them, like one of them, like we just put some people to training this morning, and we basically did it for free. Meanwhile, there's companies out there that are charging these people, which shows me that there's a calling or a need for people, for normal men to want to be tested. They'll charge them like 15 grand, 18 grand to do something.
I've seen like that.
And they're just yelling and yelling and be like, bro, you don't have to belittle somebody to make them physically and mentally stronger. You don't. That's not how you build people up. Like,
I've literally seen this.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, yeah.
And there's multiple companies out there, and all these dudes who are public speakers, and I'm like, bro, what is your history? You're talking about mental toughness. You're talking about physical fitness or being what is your background? Oh, nothing.
Well, it's almost like the conversation is, I'm tough. Look at me, I'm tough. I could speak well.
Yeah.
And that's why they're even considered alpha without any sort of like actual backbone to it.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Or their title was Navy SEAL, Green Beret, Army Ranger 10, 15 years ago. And it's like, what are you doing now? Because I was a Navy SEAL. I got out in 2017. So if I want to keep talking about 2017, at some point we're going to be at 2030, 2040, and I'm still talking about 2017. It's like, what have you done now? I'm a better, I'll speak for both of us on this. We're better shooters, better fighters, better warriors now than we ever were in the military because we just every single day keep that going. And when I see a lot of these guys online, kind of spitting this like, you know, that's not how we teach. And good on them. They have a great business model. But like, if you want to be hard, I don't need to yell at you. I just put you in some cold water at night and just stay silent and let you go through the worst pain of your life. And that builds you up. I don't have to call you a piece of shit.
Yeah.
When you come out of the water, you're like, oh my God, I survived. And now you feel better about that. So I think they put these salacious headlines out and it looks cool on the internet and they get a lot of followers and that's fine too. But I look at the guy first, because sometimes you look at them and you're like, that dude was a turd in his platoon. He wasn't even a good operator, you know?
Yeah.
Look at the people and what they're doing now.
Yeah. And it's also like there's a lot of people in this space who it's almost as if like their sort of claim to fame about being alpha is just that they're alpha. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
To sell the idea of being alpha
Yeah.
because I'm alpha, but like that's their claim.
Yeah.
Without, like I said, without the backbone. It's an interesting thing that happens. Like, you know, a lot of people, you know, certain people sell things and it's like a self-help thing. And like, oh, this is how you get success. This is another example. And it's like the only reason why they're successful is because they're selling the thing to teach you how to be success without having success prior to selling the product to get you successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a crazy thing on the internet. Then people just, because they see it or because it looks flashy or because they got followers, that people jump in, they go, this guy knows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
It's weird.
We're actually just entering this world, and for example, because Mike is not so out there like I am. Like when I said all the alpha suck, Mike is more professional, dude. We were training these millionaires, right? And to be physically, mentally stronger, we're putting them through LANAV exercises and team exercises, no yelling, no nothing for 3 days. And Mike just gave like an opening, like, hey, this is who we are. We're going to learn and grow together. We're going to do A, B, and C, but I need you to push yourself. Trust us, right? And at the end, the millionaire was like, dude, we just paid somebody like $67,000 to talk at our conference. And what you just said right now for 45 minutes was way better than the stuff this guy said. And that dude was just one of those, like, you know how you become mentally tough? You know how you do this?
Yeah.
But that's all he sells. And you know, now I do public speaking, and another millionaire that we trained was like, hey man, you mind speaking at our conference in Canada? Long story short, man, I grew up physically, mentally abused. I was poor, you know, then I became a gang member, and then, you know, I realized that was wrong, and I took myself out. I'm a big supporter of my family, my community. I do a lot of work in my local community. And I gave my little story that I do, and the guy was like, "Dude, can you tell that at the conference? Like, what's your rate?" And I'm like, "I don't have a rate. I'm just doing this to help you out. You know, I'm not gonna charge you $80,000 or whatever for like the dude that's like, I'm alpha. This is how you're alpha." And it's like, dude, you're whack.
Yeah, it's a purpose thing. It's like someone's purpose in that setting. It seems to be just to make money, with the guise of like, I'm going to teach you this thing that I don't necessarily know, but I'm going to make you believe I know because I could talk good about it.
For out there,
Weird.
Angel's rate is extremely high.
Yeah.
He doesn't sell himself well.
There was something I was going to say. At some point, there is like a time and place for people who genuinely, like, for example, I could teach you about bodybuilding because I've done it. I've lived it for years. Like I've done the food, I've done the dieting, I've done the training, I've done trying to be stronger, be bigger. Like I've done everything. So I could teach you about that because I've really done it. So there is a place where there is value there because you've really done it. I just think it's interesting, you know, talking to two men who like literally lived it, you know, like what it means to like that mental toughness and fortitude to get through everything you've been through. And just in relationship to the people who sell the snake oil in regards to it is just so interesting. So like there is a time when like you do have to value what you are able to offer based on your literal life experience.
Yeah.
I just think there's so many basically imposters that are like really good at working the system on the internet, and it's no real substance. It's just like the typical that anyone would say or anyone could say. And I don't know. I just, you know, you guys obviously are not the most popular. You know, I started this podcast being like, yo, this is not, you guys aren't the most popular creators I've ever spoken to, which is, it doesn't mean anything to me. Like, I actually really love having this conversation with you guys because you guys really live the life that we're trying to, like, me in a way, not any means from where you guys have come from, but I'm trying to share with my audience, like trying to get people to be better, trying to get people to believe that they can overcome the things that they've gone through in their life like you've done. And, you know, you guys are just different iterations of it. And I just have so much love and so much respect for people who really lived it and who really do it. And because that's how you really learn. Like, if I really wanted to learn how to be a Navy SEAL or be a Ranger or like really put my, like, I would have to talk to someone like you, because I would never be able to listen to someone who was just like, yeah, this is great, alpha's this and women that. And it's like, I just, it's a weird thing that happens on the internet because there's so many people, like most people just don't have an idea at all. So they're willing to listen to anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, some of the people, some of the greatest minds in spaces like this that could really help other people, such as yourselves, is like, you're not as loud about it. You're not as flamboyant about it, but you have what it really takes and what someone really needs to hear and to understand because you lived it.
Yeah. And you know, we're just entering this world, and me specifically, and I got to give credit to Mike, because he's like I said, he's been like a big brother to me. He's helped me believe in myself, and you know, like he'll say, hey, you know, when you start talking and you start sharing, you have people's attention, you know, and you got to work at that. And I remember thinking like, dude, I'm not a public speaker, like, you know, and or I'm not this and I'm not that, and he has helped me. And just like how you said it, you know, we're quiet, and I think it takes people like us to believe in ourselves, even though we've done A, B, and C in the military. Believe in ourselves here in the civilian
whole new
world,
arena.
And then
Same concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have what it takes 100%. I mean, if you could do what you've done, it's like, if I could do what I did, you could figure it out easy. You know, like you've done 10 times harder.
You know, I think the internet is it's a place where people have been fed short, quick highlights for such a long time that they'll see a guy like you and they'll be like, big man, and they'll look at it and they'll idolize that at first. And then eventually they want to break it down because maybe their own jealousy or whatever, but they don't want to look at what got you there.
Yeah.
That's not sexy. To watch the years and years of dedication you put into this, the every morning, how I'm guaranteeing you were probably at the gym every morning.
Oh yeah.
Getting after it every day. Nobody cares about you when you were like, I'm just going to throw, I don't know your background, but like at 17 when you were skinny and like, I want to be this one day. Nobody gives. They want to see you now at this success.
Yeah.
But what we value is looking at the person when they're here, when they're not here. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I want to know that kid. Like the kids we were working with today who are like down on their luck. They're like tiny. We're just crushing their nuts in. I want to see that guy in 15 years, you know, and see where he's become, because I don't care about the highlight reel. I want to affect change now. I want to affect change when before the guy becomes famous, before the guy becomes big and accomplishes all those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you look at Angel, myself, even yourself, you see all the things from the past, but you don't actually like calculate what it took to get there.
For sure.
And value that.
I mean, that's the most interesting thing on the internet now, is like that sort of mentality bleeds into everything of like, you know, you're talking about the clips or the highlights, and it's like, this is what it really comes down to, is like what happened to instilling the things that are really required to get there. Like even just as a country, like the basic of physical education and all these sort of things that we have just, at some point in this country, I know for a fact the rigorousness of like our PE and our physical education sort of coursing was so much different. And then it's just, everything is just participation trophies, and it's okay if you're not the best. And it's like, yeah, it is, but it's also like, why would you set yourself up to like go towards not being the best? It's like, whatever it is, try.
Yeah.
And like we've lost that sort of toughness, I feel like, as just a country.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's really like, why are we not telling people, no, you should try to be number one. You should be the best. Because the people who always find true success at anything they do, that's where their mind's at. Whether they get there, it's irrelevant. It's like, yo, you should aim for that. You should shoot for that. And I never understood why it's become so like, almost like, oh, like, you know, the hard dad, the guy who wants his kid to be good at this. And it's like, oh, he's too aggressive, or he's not like accepting of his son. Cause it's like, what the happened to like trying to push people?
Yeah. You want my kid to be basic and mediocre like your kid? Like that. No, I'm gonna work as hard, and I think there's not enough failure in kids' lives. Parents don't let their kids fail enough. They helicopter parent. They try to cushion them and coddle them. And you know, I have 2 kids, a 12 and a 9-year-old, and I try to make my kids warriors, man. We go train on the mats, and I whoop their little ass, you know? Like
Yes, you have to.
We're at the house, and I'm grinding on them with chores, and I love the shit out of them, and I'm so loving to them. But like, if they want to get their way, they got to work for it. And there's not enough kids that experience failure. Like if my kid loses a game, I'm like, hey, you lost, man. I don't say like, oh, you did great. I'm like, hey, you struck out at baseball today. That's okay. Here's how we're going to get better next week.
Yeah.
And when I was a buds instructor teaching those guys, one thing I noticed was the lack of resiliency. Like the students were getting stronger and stronger and faster and smarter, and they were getting less resilient. And I think it's generational. I think it's everything. I don't think it's these particular kids.
They were getting stronger, faster, and better, but less resilient
to failure.
Oh, got it.
Less resilient to failure. And Buds is designed where you will fail at something. You will fail many times at things. If you're a fast runner, cool, we'll put you in the cold water and you'll freeze. If you're a fast swimmer, cool, we'll make you do 1,000 push-ups before and then you'll fail to swim. Like, we make it where you will fail, and we see how you react to it. And there was a story of a kid who failed out of Hell Week. This is while I was in the Navy. He failed at Hell Week, and as most of these guys, he wanted to be a SEAL since he was young, and he left the compound while he didn't go to sleep. He was awake for multiple days. Failed, wanted to be a SEAL since he was however old, gets in his car or an Uber and goes to the Marriott Hotel downtown San Diego and takes the elevator up to the rooftop bar and walks out and like steps off the edge and just kills himself. And I remember hearing that and being like, dude, that is a kid who had never experienced failure in his life, and he didn't know how to handle it. And I don't want to speak poorly on him or his family in any way, but that is a kid who did not have resiliency. He failed. Who cares? Go be in the Navy. You're still serving your country. Go do something else. Go thrive. But he killed himself. He couldn't handle it. And dude, like what a waste of a great human. Like somebody who's not only willing to serve but wants to be the best, but he just could not overcome that failure. And I think resiliency is one of the like biggest lessons you could teach your kids or your friends, how to handle yourself in the wake of failure.
I mean, damn. It's so tough hearing stuff like that. My father, I told you, passed when I was young. He took his life. My father hung himself when I was young, and it's not making it so. I've talked about this a lot. When I was 6, he did that. And my whole life is a representation of like what I have now is because of this idea of loss in relationship to failure. Like, cause there must have been this moment when I was young thinking like, not typical failure, like, oh, I didn't pass this test or I didn't get this point, but almost a sense of like, I wasn't good enough. I'm a failure. That's why, like when I was a kid. Now I'm much older and I know it's different now, but I remember being young and feeling like, why am I not good enough to have my father?
Wow.
Fuck, man. And, but now looking back, it took me so many years to figure it out, but the idea and like the being okay with the failure and failure itself was like that whole idea I had about good enough was what made me who I am today. Like I wouldn't have all of the success in my life. I wouldn't be able to sit here and talk to you amazing people. I wouldn't, all the people that I've talked to, the money that I've made, I wouldn't have any of it if it wasn't for that moment in my life. And that truly shaped who I am. Like, I'll give you another example. being in the gym, right? When I found the gym, this is my escape. This is like the thing that made me feel like everything else could disappear and I could prove that I'm good. I could prove that I'm better. I could be worth it, right? To be around for. And it's such a weird, sorry, it's such a weird sort of relationship because through bodybuilding, through the gym, through my experiences, my childhood, life is a bunch of failure that gets you to where you want to be. Yeah. And you have to be okay with it. Like there's no other choice because to be great at bodybuilding, to be great at business, to be a great friend, like you have to go through moments where you weren't a good friend. You have to go through moments where you failed in the gym, where you have to go through moments where you didn't pass the thing you wanted to pass. Like that's how you learn. That's how you grow. And that's how you get better. Like physically, even like to grow, to be physically better, you have to fail. You have to push yourself to that point of failure. So my whole entire life is a representation of that, of failure. That's the only reason why I have success. And so it's just such a, like when I hear stories like that, it's like, how did, I don't know. It's like no one got to that person or no one had the conversation or that person was too afraid to have the conversation or whatever it was around that idea of failure or not being good enough or whatever it was. Cause that's what it came down to. He felt like it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
But to be good enough, you have to not be good enough. Like to actually eventually be good enough, you have to know what it's like to not be good enough. And my whole life is a version of that. And I have success now and I'm so grateful for my life. And like, there's been moments where I thought about suicide and like, what the point of life? And it's like, I wouldn't be able to sit here and have any of this conversation or give any good to the world if it wasn't for failing. And like, I wish more people would just understand that and hear that.
Yeah, that was really well said. That was really well said. I think that's why I respect entrepreneurs so much is because any successful entrepreneur I see, I'm like, that dude failed so many times. It had to.
It's impossible not to.
It's impossible not to. And I just in my own experience with entrepreneurship, how many hurdles people see my titles, accomplishments, but they don't see like, okay, you went to undergrad at this school. That's amazing. You must be smart. Yeah, but you didn't see the 15 schools I was rejected from. Oh, you went to business school. Yeah, but you didn't see I got rejected from like 80% of the business schools I applied to. Oh, you must have done this. Well, I started like 3 businesses, incorporated companies that failed before I started this. Like I got rolled in buds during training and almost, didn't make it through training because of like illness. Those are the things that like build character.
Yeah.
The accomplishments, man. Like I know he's the exact same way. We'll run a marathon and it's just check. I don't even think about it. We'll accomplish something and okay, what's next? What's next? But when you fail at something, that's where like the growth happens.
Why are people afraid of that?
I think, man, it doesn't feel good. Failing sucks. And I don't know what it is about people that can't turn that into a positive. They'll see, I try to do as much community work as I can. And I tell them like, hey man, like, when I go talk to kids that are also from the hood and be like, hey man, like you see, I'm here talking to you today and I'm telling you I do this and I do that, but man, I failed a lot. And people didn't believe me that I was going to change and that I was actually wanting to do good. And when I tried something, I remember when I first tried something to better my life, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in the right path, and I failed and it didn't work. And I'm like, and I had this little inner bitch feel like, well, then why even try? And then for a split second, I was like, no, keep going. Just keep going. But I remember that for that split second when I felt bad, and I think people fail and they're like, I don't want to feel this ever again, so I'll never even test myself. And I think that's what's going on in this country, because you see so many dudes and you're like, how are you not like this? How are you not like that? And you're like, well, you haven't even given yourself the opportunity to fail, to reach this point. And it's like, man, I'm not sure if it's because of the internet, where everyone sees that everyone's living a great life and they're always successful and this and this or this or that, or, maybe they're lucky I can't reach that because I'm not them. I don't know what it is, but you know how we do change that is at the house. It's not going to be fast. Everybody wants a quick, like fix, right? But
That's
it's not.
exactly what it is.
But it's not. You're not going to change someone's political views, or if they like this pre-workout or that pre-workout with like a 5-second video. It's like when people are set to their things, they're set to the things. But how do you change it? Slowly, and people don't want that.
That's exactly it. I think that's the answer. I think it's in relationship, and it's only gotten worse because of the internet. Because of you see, oh, they have it, and this kid's 19, he has a success. I should have that. I'm 19. How come I'm nowhere close?
Yeah.
I think it's the comparison, right? Which is a massive thief of joy.
Yep.
And then it's also the time that they go, okay, this didn't work. Like, oh, I'm gonna quit. And it's like, yeah, but that's not how failure works. That's not how success works. It's not like you go, oh, I tried this once and I should have it tomorrow or the next day or next month. Like, the reason why you could sit and have conversations or even share anything that you've been through is because like you've been through it and you failed and you lost. And that's why you have something to give. And that's how you know how to move forward better. Like, you hear all the time about people who get all this money, or like people win the lottery and they lose it all. It's because they never knew how to have money because they never really earned it. Mm-hmm. So that's a great example of someone who had everything just given to them, but they don't know how to deal with it because they don't know what it's like to have to earn it, right? You have to earn it, and you have to earn it through failure. And just not enough people are comfortable because they go, well, I'm on the internet and this guy has this, and what about me? And it's like, cut all the out and fail and try again, and then fail and try again, and be comfortable knowing that you're not going to get the result you want the first time. It may take you 10 times, it may take you 100 times, but if you give about it enough, then you'll continue to do it. Yeah. And not enough people are comfortable with that process because they want it right now, and that's not realistic.
And how bad do you want it?
Yeah, and because then it's like, is it truly purposeful? Because if something you truly want, then it doesn't matter. Like which is how bad you want it. Because how bad you want it is related to how much it actually means to you.
Yeah.
Because if it truly means enough to you, it doesn't matter. You could fail every single time. You're still going to try. And the truth is, the crazy part about it all is like the end result that everyone's looking for, dude, you'll get there someday. And if it's money or this or that, you'll get there and you realize like, wow, this does not feel like what I thought it would feel like. Everything else along the way, when I look back now, that was the feeling. Yeah. And it was when you were failing. It wasn't when you had the success. It wasn't when you had all the money. Because I've been there. I've been there with no money. I've been there broke as living in people's houses. I've done it all, and having the money. And having the money, oh, it's amazing. I look back and I'm like, man, these were the moments though. This is what made me feel good, even though it was bad at the time. And people are just afraid of that. Yeah. It's crazy to me. And maybe it's just certain humans are just different. I don't know. I think people are just wired different or conditioned different based on how they're brought up or what they're told or what they believe of themselves based on what people are telling them. And I think it's just like, how do we convince more people to go like, block out all the, like, where are you at? What do you want? What really matters to you? Yeah. Focus on that.
And you know what? That's why it bugs me when I see people who maybe they didn't have all, like I didn't grow up in a nice house, like white picket fence, loving family. No, my dad was an alcoholic. He'd beat the shit out of us. My mom told us that nobody loved us, that we ruined her life, and we were poor. I used to get made fun of all the time because I would wear the same clothes all the time. And me being the first one to be born in this country, obviously Spanish is the main language in my house. So I can't read, I can't write. When I'm in third grade, I'm doing first grade homework. I'm being pulled to the side during reading and writing time and reading like kindergarten and first grade books because I'm so far behind. And I wasn't guided, right? So when people say like, oh, well, because I don't have this, I don't have that. I was like, I didn't either. Like, look, man, at some point you have to be like, look, man, okay, this is where I'm starting in this race, right? Or the hand of cards that I have with, okay, that sucks. But what am I gonna do?
Stop being a victim.
Yeah, and I'm gonna work hard and work hard and work hard, and I'm gonna fail. And I did fail a lot, but I won at the right moments. And along the path, you know what happened? People with good hearts saw me working hard, and they're like, you know what? Let me help them out. And they did. Like where I'm at today, I am an accumulation of all my mentors and my hard work. Because if it weren't, I can't just work hard. I worked hard, and great people with good hearts were like, you know what? Hey, check this out. Yeah. And they helped, But it starts with inside. It starts with owning up to your own faults or whatever and being like, you know what? this isn't going to be my story. And I don't know what the answer is to give, it's like a pill to people and for them to stop being like that.
There's not, except what you just said. That's it. It's just for the people who are willing to listen,
Yeah.
who are willing to take it and go, okay, I'm going to live like that. Because that is the truth. I don't care what sort of success. Anyone who's had all the success, they'll all say the same thing. That's the truth. So whether people want to hear it or not, it's tough because it's not easy.
Yeah.
But dude, this has been like easily my favorite podcast I think I've ever done.
Thanks,
Like,
man.
and it's so ironic that it's not like the fancy YouTuber athlete or this is cool. So I really appreciate you guys coming and talking to me today, genuinely.
And you know what? I think it's because, it's real. And I think the internet for too often has been giving this fake stuff that people are in dire need of, like real conversations with real people that, because not everyone's an influencer. So like, I can't relate to them, but you know what? If you have a serious conversation with somebody and they're giving you something serious, I can relate to that.
Yeah, I could tell.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you having us on. We love to tell our story, but most importantly, we love to pass on the message to other veterans because there's so many veterans out there in Los Angeles, even and they just are all alone. There's no community, and we pass this on, man. If there are any vets out there who like are in need or struggling, hit us up, message us because we've been through it. We've been through like the gauntlet, and all of our friends have been through the gauntlet of that requires to transition back to like normal life. And I hate seeing guys go through that. So that's our message to any vets who listen to this is like, hit us up and you're not alone. There's way more of us out there than you think. And we're trying to build that community.
I support it fully, man. And anything I could do to help, hopefully this does help. And I'd love to also come shoot with you guys and train a little bit.
Heck yeah.
I love shooting.
Heck
Anytime.
I love shooting.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that. You guys do like clear, like I know you do it every night, but can we go do like room clearing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I want to do that. I want to do that so bad.
Come out. Bring Josh and some of the boys.
Yeah,
We'd
yeah.
love to.
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for coming, for real.
Thank you for having us.
Genuinely,
Thank
you
you
guys
for
are solid humans, man. And
Awesome,
thanks for
man.
everything you guys have done for this country as well.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Every Tuesday 11, I love you guys. Subscribe to the channel. Hopefully, guys, you guys liked it. Obviously, I know it's not the typical sort of podcast, but I don't honestly. I like this. Like I said, this is probably my most favorite one that I've ever done, and I really, really appreciate you guys. And I want to do more stuff like this. That's not just social media land, and it's real. So thank you guys again, man.
Thank you
real.
for having us.
Yeah, awesome.